Hi, Ellie. Hi. Is Lydia going to be able to join as well?
She won't be able to make it today. She sends her apologies.
Okay, that's fine. Well, thank you so much for being able to join us. And this is the GO team. And so I wanted to have them hear about Bubble and Squeak and the amazing work that you guys have been doing, and the impact of the funding on your food program. But I'd love for you to just kind of maybe start and tell us a little bit about your story and how Bubble and Squeak got started.
Yeah, definitely. I found actually a presentation that just gives a few pictures that I could share at the same time, just to give it some
Sure, I
flavor.
think we
I think
can
I
let you
shared
share
it with
screens.
you. Yeah. Let me. If I do share screen, just make sure I've got the right thing up. There we go. Okay. Okay. Great. Can you see that?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Hello. Yeah. So my name is Elly, and I am from Bubble and Squeak. We are communities built by kids, powered by food, and we were set up in 2017 to help tackle food waste, and also to give a kids-led enterprise project in East Acton. So the idea started as a surplus food stall, and the children were learning about food waste. They were shocked at how much food waste was taking place in the world, so decided to do something about it. So that's them with their stall, that's them pitching. Yeah, so these are some food waste facts, which is crazy. I'm sure it's the same in the States as well, the amount of food waste that takes place. Yeah, and this is where the project is. It's in West London, in a park called East Acton. It's quite a deprived area. It's in kind of the bottom two in the borough of deprivation, all the challenges that come with that. Really diverse area as well. And it's also, I don't know if you can physically see, quite cut off by where it is. So there's the big road of the Westway. And for a lot of our families that reside in the area where the arrow is pointing, so kind of Old Oak Primary School, it's really cut off physically where it is. So a lot of our families don't really move that far from this area, and there's not that much of a high street, and there's all the problems that come along with this kind of setup. Yeah, and then, so why are we doing this? So we thought it was really important for children to take ownership of a project that could make a difference, as well as supporting their community, and really put the power back into the hands of the children. And they were so passionate about it as well. And it kind of gives a dual effect of saving surplus food, as well as helping people who need it. And food poverty is something that really affects the local area, and all the different things that come with food poverty. So it's not just about not physically being able to get the food, it's about food nutrition, access to healthy food, low income families, families who are on benefits, large households in families, loads of different stuff that we try to tackle through access to surplus food and the surplus food store. So how are we doing this? So this is very much pre-pandemic. So from 2017 to pre-pandemic, which is April 2020, we set up our surplus food stall. We crowdfunded for a shipping container, which, as you can see here, you can see my colleague Lydia in the background with the children. And the shipping container is on school property, but we kind of have our own access. So it's a really good way around making use of community spaces. You know, a small space and a real hub can develop around this food initiative. And then outside the surplus food stall, the shipping container, we run our surplus food stall. So the picture on the bottom right, you can see loads of access to healthy produce, and yeah, it's all set up. I'm so sorry, my computer's going to run out of battery. Give me 1 second. Wait 1 sec.
It happens.
Okay. Made it. Yeah, so the other thing we do is run community events as well. And that's really important for us to create these touchstone moments for the community to come together and do something that's enjoyable for them. And food would be the vessel for this. So again, we'd have like afternoon teas, we'd have bingo, we'd have, you know, outdoor summer events. And it's those kind of opportunities that these families and children lack, which is they're free to attend, and they promote, you know, healthy eating, having fun, and taking ownership of things they'd like to see and do in the area, and giving them the skills and the confidence to host it and put it on. So it goes from having not much to do to creating something that they can do for themselves, and using resources that were already in existence and spaces which were being underused. So yeah, we've also run after school club as well, which is kind of the vessel for a lot of this work. So they're doing their community gardening, we've got cooking club, and that was running 3 days a week at the community centre. Oh, and these are community events as well. And there's we did lots of intergenerational work, which was really lovely. Oh, we made our own chutneys, which we sold. Do note that this picture the children are standing in front of, it was this kind of enterprise event, and that was a Damien Hirst, and it was probably worth about 4 million. And the children kept on backing further back into it, and I was like, oh God, this is stressful. But they did really well and sold lots of their Christmas cards, which were made out of their wonky fruit and veg drawings, and we turned them into Christmas cards. So it's a bit of a roundup of what our schedule would look like pre-pandemic. So really, we've built a really full schedule and lots of different opportunities to get involved. So this is a roundup of what we've achieved. So we've got a bit of press. We've been saving a lot of surplus food. We're distributing a lot of food to people as well.
And then you had to shift pretty quickly with the pandemic.
Yeah, so that leads us on, to the pandemic. So pandemic hit, and we really realized how being a small organization was such an asset to us, and how our pre-existing work over the past few years set us up in amazing stead to support our community. So we immediately pivoted our surplus food stall to delivering to our local community directly, which we thought that delivery process for us was really important, because A, it made it COVID secure. And I heard of multiple stories in other community projects in London where there was volunteers working with surplus food, and because of the way it was set up, you know, it was at a risk of spreading COVID. So we were really keen on doing this delivery setup, doing it outside, making it as secure as possible to support our families. We also really had a really good partnership relationship with different organisations in the community. So we knew who the children and families and the elderly who needed support, and we could work through all the GDPR stuff. I don't know, do you have that in the States? It's basically like there's new laws in Europe where you have to be really careful how you share data. So for a lot of organisations that was a challenge, because you can't just share numbers between people, but we had systems in place which meant that we could access data with consent. So we could quickly pivot our what we do to deliver, and we knew who to deliver to, and we could contact them, which was really important. And we were working with people in the local community as well, who, they've been born and bred there all their lives. They really knew what was going on. So we weren't just parachuting in, trying to save the day and look for the people that need help. It was very much led by people who are already in the community. So like Fleur, an example, she is a volunteer, and she also works at the school, and she knows all her neighbours, and she's super passionate about looking out, and she's a great asset for this kind of work. And there's just a picture of a family inside the home, which I always really like. So that was a roundup for COVID. Do you have any more questions around COVID, actually?
I'd like to kind of hear your feedback on the impact that campaign funding during the pandemic and the impact it had on your work at Bubble and Squeak.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it was a massive relief to get, because it was so it was such a smooth process, and it was such a boost to be contacted to say, we think your work's amazing, tell us what you're doing, and then to get it acknowledged that we should keep going. So that was really important for us as an organisation, because we've set it up ourselves. We're very small. We don't have like a big, body supporting us. So to get that acknowledgement was really, really powerful for us. The funds itself, the impact really enabled us to keep doing what we were doing, especially around the food provision. So the surplus food stalls, the delivering to families and older people in the estate, as well as the kind of the funding side of it that's not that, I don't know what the word is, appealing to explain. So like the bread and butter admin side. So you have the coordinating of people and the calling of people and the working out who's going where, and checking if so-and-so wants it and who doesn't, and speaking with different community partners and getting new referrals. All that stuff does take time and care to get it right. So it really helped us to keep doing that. It enabled us to increase the amount of food that we could provide as well, and to give that consistency to provision, as well as give a kind of solid support in the community, which enabled us to keep receiving the surplus food from our partners, because we had really good relationships with them pre-pandemic, that because we had this funding, we were able to establish ourselves as the response kind of people in Old Oak for people, for local people who are struggling with food insecurity. And as the pandemic went on, I'm sure you had similar things in the States, where we found with families and our community in Old Oak, it was split into two camps of those who were on the just about struggling pre-pandemic, dropped off to struggling. Low income wages might have been lost. Income was very low. it was very stressful inside the home. And then we had those who this was their situation beforehand, and pandemic came, and it was a whole another different ball game that they found themselves facing, especially around kind of mental health. We kind of acted whilst the lockdown happens as the sort of touchstone of checking in on families. So, for example, this is Oz, who delivers surplus food to us on the left-hand side of the screen. And he was brilliant through us giving him, a bit of safeguarding training and guidance in being alert to what was going on in the communities and allowing us to develop a safeguarding process to look out for those children who wouldn't have been picked up on otherwise because they weren't going into school. Things like not being dressed properly, food that wasn't being put away in one instance, or even just through having chats with families and being able to escalate that up and get them the support they need and really work with our network of partners. So that was really like a side product of providing surplus food by physically knowing who they are and going to deliver. It meant a lot of care and attention to these families, which they weren't getting anywhere else. And that phone contact support as well really helped us to bring this together and to allow us to communicate with different partners. Yeah.
I'd love for you to share, like maybe, a story of a family that really you were able to help that kind of sticks out as a kind of example of the work Bubble and Squeak was doing.
Yeah, I think, well, it's Mental Health Awareness Week in the UK this week. So probably an apt one would be a mum who we supported throughout the pandemic called Boshra, and she has always struggled with her mental health and has various health conditions, which means she wasn't able to work. She's a single parent mum, which is a lot of families who we support actually are single parents. And she'd always used to come to the surplus food stall, and it was a real asset to her. Not only being able to access healthy surplus food, but having that contact and having that conversation around food that made her feel good, in her own words. So we were delivering to her throughout the pandemic, and we picked up on a domestic violence safeguarding concern, which she shared with us through our conversations, which meant that we escalated that to her housing provider, who we work really closely with. Because of that, they were able to go in and give her the support she needs in terms of the domestic violence, but also just really practical support and change the locks on her property, which was causing her a lot of mental distress. So that was, in the summer, and then throughout the year, we kept on delivering food to her, and we do things where things that would support her, like she loved to share the recipes she was making with us. So we'd share that on our Instagram, and we've got a community newsletter as well. It's called the East Acton Times, where children write their own news stories, and we've put community news in it. And we would feature her recipes in the newsletter, and she said it would give her such a boost to see her recipes in print. And you can imagine, if you were struggling with your mental health for the past year, to have something that made you feel kind of supported and included and really valued what you were doing, which was, putting food on the table for your family. It's a really good, yeah. She's really benefited from what we do, definitely.
I know one of your goals with the food program was to kind of catch that level of people who didn't qualify for government assistance.
Yeah.
You know, but we're just like right above that level. So can you talk about like, you know, how you identify those families, and what would have happened if for them if Bubble and Squeak wasn't there to provide assistance?
Yeah. So we identified them through our partnership work. So we work really closely with the school, so we know the parents and their situation, and we speak to them as well, which is really important. I think often there's like a veil of bureaucracy with a lot of these food initiatives, where we don't actually know. Is that that's not my laptop, is it?
No, I think that's my dog. I apologize.
Oh, sorry.
It's my snoring dog.
Oh, I love it. Just checking, because you were looking at me and being like, what's that noise? Yeah, so we'd speak to them first because we'd know they would know us locally. So they know the surplus food stall, they know when we're there. We know, so they'd come and speak to us. The other thing is we'd use our network of providers, contacts who refer to us as well. This has been my favourite Zoom call for a while. Yeah, so that's to answer that question, that's how they get to know. And in terms of the what would have happened if we didn't support them, well, I think there is always, so in the UK there's a few avenues you can go to get support if you are struggling with food insecurity. One of them is food banks. They were massively oversubscribed, but they were pretty good in organising themselves during the pandemic. London was pretty good in having a big response in getting food to people who need it. But the issue we got fed back with this service was, whilst they were grateful, it often lacked, and it took away a lot of the dignity that should come with feeding yourselves. So they might get a tray of something that provided X amount of days emergency response, and it was, you know, tins that might have not taken into consideration their cultural needs. They might just not eat it. You know, there was no kind of tailor making to it, and also not taking consideration the size of the families as well, because there's a lot of big households in one home, so over occupancy is a big thing. Yes, so we found that our approach really gave that dignity in feeding themselves that was needed in such a challenging time. And it also gave one less process of bureaucracy in supporting yourself, because all they had to do was go to the school and speak to a teacher, or come and speak to us when we're setting up, you know, the surplus food stall in at Old Oak Primary, or get referred to us by someone they already know and trust locally. So it just really enhanced a response that was dignified and kind of a right, instead of something which was appreciated but not always what they needed. If that makes sense.
Totally does. Well, I'd love to kind of open it up to the other staff members to ask their questions, and so I'll open the floor.
Okay, if I start.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you so much for speaking with us and taking the time out and presenting your beautiful presentation.
I know, I'm trying to how to end it. Can you see me? I don't know. Okay.
I think, there you go.
Okay, hello. I'm back.
I want to apologize. I don't have my camera on because my internet is not great, but I wanted to kind of see on a more personal note what made you want to start Bubble and Squeak, and like what kind of inspired you to start doing this work?
Yeah, well, myself and Lydia, we both worked locally for quite a few years before we started the project. So we had a real understanding of the area. I was doing community work as well for the community centre, and we both shared that passion for approaching the needs of a community differently, to kind of parachuting in as an external organisation and having a programme and then leaving again, because I would see that so many times. And it was often really underused spent funds for a start, which used to drive me wild, because it just wasn't, I just don't believe it's an efficient way of using money to come into a community. You're always so much better placed to let the community lead on it themselves. So that was a big reason for me wanting to start it, is a kind of as a experiment to see if this idea could work in the area that we knew well and we already had the interest in. The second thing is that well, myself and Lydia we're both believers in the magic and genius that children can bring, from multiple aspects. So I think that people really forget how wonderful children are in bringing in life and hope and creativity in tackling some of, you know, the world's biggest problems. And in a small way, Bubble and Squeak allows them to do that, and to instill in them values that they can do that wherever they go. And for these children, they're not always told that message, because the way society is, that's not what's shared with them. They're shared with them many conflicting things, and it's not always instilled with them the hope that they can bring to make their lives better and their community better, and the impact this has. That's why everything we do, we always try and bring a fun element to it, and it's never about poverty shaming or you know, food insecurity. It's always about the children making the difference for themselves and for others. So yeah, that was a big motivation, and also the importance of making it place-based. I thought that was a really interesting idea, to see how far you could get with making something local, hyper local, and it really ties in with the sustainability piece. Is that impact isn't always about growth in a traditional sense. Growth can mean many different things, and it was an opportunity to reinvent that and to have some really demonstrable outcomes, which I feel that we have now after doing it for so many years.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, it's waffling on. Please stop me.
No, but I appreciate you sharing that with us. I completely agree with you that growth doesn't necessarily have to be just numbers, but can show itself in different ways. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we do get asked, like, oh, do you want Bubble and Squeak, you know, all over London? It's like, well, we could do, but there could be, you know, someone else in another community who's got this amazing idea. They know this, they're really passionate, and they can make it happen themselves. So it's not always about taking on 10 franchises and doing X, Y, Z. And I guess our biggest kind of goal that we have is to become self-sustainable, because we have been able to do what we can do through fundraising, but we also acknowledge that, you know, the model of a social enterprise, like for me, I just, if we can achieve that, that would be an amazing way of showing that making a difference is at the heart of doing good, but you don't always have to rely on grants. But we're not there yet. We're still very much grant dependent to do any of this work. Yeah.
Hi, good morning, Ellie. My name's Lauren. I do the marketing and communications for GO. First of all, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
First being, can you tell us the story behind your logo? Because it looks like that is also from the mind of students. And then also, I was just curious if schools are open in the UK yet, and just kind of what the energy is like with the students, if they're, how are they feeling about getting back into community, and like what sort of ideas have they had, you know, during this past year about like what they're excited to do, you know, coming out of the pandemic in their community.
Yeah, so the logo, it is designed by the children. Yeah, we had a real, I don't know if you've looked into surplus food initiatives, but all the names are kind of taken. So we were in a real like, what can we do here? So yeah, we were brainstorming with the children and looking at, you know, different kinds of what does food waste mean, and cooking, and Bubble and Squeak in the UK, I don't know if you know, is a dish where you cook with, oh, you've had it. Have you tried Bubble and Squeak?
Yeah, my roommate is British, so yes.
Oh, amazing. Well, you know,
yeah, we do a lot of cooking.
Okay, great. But yeah, it's a British thing where you recook Sunday roast, and we love this idea because the children that we work with, it's a real mix of ethnicities and culture. And for some of the children, you know, they were having it every Monday at the Nans, and for some of the other kids, they were like, "What is Bubble and Squeak? Like, I've never had gravy before. What are you on about?" So it started a real interesting conversation between the children. We're like, "Oh, this is quite representative of what we're doing." And then we run after school club where there's a art club. So got the children to draw all the different colours and designs and make it as colourful as possible. So that's always the logo, yeah. And your second question, what was your second question again?
If school is back in session in the UK, and what the students are excited about coming back out of the pandemic.
Yeah, so school, we've just come out with the, lost track, third lockdown. Yeah, so a few weeks ago, children came back, and the mood is they're kind of overjoyed to be back. They're really, really happy to, yeah, just to be out and about again, I think. In terms of ideas, they're still really passionate about sustainability. We had our latest recruit had posted her picture on Instagram, who's been pestering for probably about 3 weeks now, pestering us for an interview. So she shows real initiative to join the Bubble and Squeak kind of cohort. And I think during lockdown, they've been doing quite a lot of art activities and things as well around sustainability. So that's really interesting to see. In terms of what they are interested in as well, I think they haven't moved much, to put it politely. So there's a real kind of need to expel energy, and that's interesting to see because you know, to put it frankly, weight gain has been a huge thing. We've noticed for so many of the children that they've put on a lot of weight during lockdown, just because they haven't had the spaces to burn off the energy and take part in things. But they're keen to have fun and enjoy themselves. So in terms of how we translate that into something that's beneficial is we're looking to do a lot of holiday work around this, where we do healthy nutrition and healthy eating classes for Holiday Club, and provide loads of opportunities to move around and do sports and have fun in outside spaces. So yeah, I think if we had another lockdown in the summer, it would be so brutal for them. So we're really hoping that can go ahead.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I love meeting our partner organizations, because, when I came on board with Go Campaign, what I learned about the organizations we partner with is they really do bend to the needs of the community, whatever that is. But there is no strict structure to what, a community needs at a given time, especially within these last few years. So thank you for sharing that. And it's just a wonderful thing to see and hear. I know that whatever, it feels good to know that, the integrity behind our words, knowing that our local heroes and the people that are, on the ground in communities around the world truly are responding to the immediate, real needs of exactly what children need. Because, what children need, like you said, what children need in East Acton, is different than, what children need in other parts of London. So I just want to say again, thank you for your work and showing up in their lives.
Thank you. It's really nice to hear.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I work in development, and I will just echo what everyone else has said. It's really incredible to hear about the work that you've been doing, how you pivoted during the pandemic, and what your plans are moving forward. I just have a very simple question that I kind of like to hear from people who are founders of organizations. What's the most gratifying part of your job? What do you feel is you get the most out of?
Yeah, really good question. I think for me, it's having the boldness to start it. I get a lot out of that because it's a simple idea which had so much impact during the pandemic, and we wouldn't have been able to do that work if we hadn't been bold enough to start it in 2017, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So something that came, it did absolutely provide such an essential need before that time, but because we believed in the values and the ethos of what we were as an organization, as something so challenging as the pandemic, it really stood us in such good stead to support people. And I don't think we'd have been able to do that without that initial belief that what we were doing was super important.
Amazing, thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I think maybe since you're here and you have our entire staff, feedback for us on what we can be doing better, how we can be working with partners like you, or things that you feel like we did or we're doing well, or ways where we can grow.
Yeah, well, firstly, a big thank you. You've been an amazing funder, and that's so valued with organisations who are time stretched, and you put a real that personal touch to getting to know your funders. I haven't experienced that with the funding we've received before. It's kind of behind layers and layers of applications, submitting it to formal websites, making sure XY this is in place. And yeah, I think it's really interesting, your approach of looking for partners and then developing personal relationships with the people you're supporting. It's great that your Go campaign is on an international level as well, because that must give you a really broad perspective as funders of the different needs of communities, but also the common themes that run through it. You can really kind of dial up that for the projects that you support. Yeah. I don't think in terms of, I think it would be, I guess, amazing to know, but this is the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? It's as people receiving the funds, having some kind of like perspective for where you guys are at long term, would be a useful asset for us to factor in, like our sort of time spent on looking for funds and things like that. Yeah, could be something that would be useful for people receiving funds, because whilst it's amazingly valued to get the money to do the initial response, there's we're always looking for the next pot, if that makes sense. So yeah, if it was possible, that could be really beneficial to people receiving money. But I completely understand how it's not always how it works. But yeah, you've been an amazing funder, and the feedback forms have been really good as well, because we were able to just tell you the story rather than have a load of data that was quantifiable, and I have done those before, and it's just like, really, what does this what is this? Like, this is madness. So yeah, that's been really positive as well.
Thank you so much. That's always helpful for us to kind of hear and improve our process. So I appreciate that. I guess if there's no other questions from anyone, I just would like to say thank you for taking the time to talk to us all this evening, I guess for you, morning for us, and just share the work that you're doing. It's been a pleasure to hear from you, and I feel like for all the staff members to get to meet you and understand the impact of the work we do here at Go Campaign.
Amazing, yeah, and thank you for the funding. It's you do amazing stuff. It's really lovely to share our story with you as well, and the difference your funds have made. So thanks.
I guess we'll say goodbye.
Thank you, Elly.
No worries, really lovely to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too.
All right.
Wonderful meeting you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.